Welcome back to the Stronghold, the Magi here, and I tell you, far and away, the thing I get asked most frequently is about wildcard use, specifically for budget players. And of course, I have some very specific and often unique views on this as a person who was trained for economic analysis. And as such, I talk about this a lot, and today it's my intention to take that conversation to the next level. But before we get into all that, take just a moment to like, comment, and subscribe, because that kind of thing really keeps this boat moving. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. Now, like I said, we talk about wildcards around here quite a lot. In fact, over just the last couple of months, we took a fresh look at the oldest sets available in Standard, specifically for the folks that weren't around to collect those. And beyond that, we made recommendations for anyone looking to upgrade their mana bases on a budget. And of course, we had to talk about the addition of the shock lands, or at least half of them, to the standard available pool, because that alone could really crush your wildcards if you didn't have a plan. And we also have made some recommendations to not only give you some standard staples in your collection that you aren't likely to get just by following the plan, but these also tend to help you bridge into other formats like Brawl. So where does one go from here? Well, if you have considered these options and decided the right actions to take for you and your collection, beyond this point, I would recommend that you start reserving your higher rarity wildcards, the rares and mythics specifically, in order to have them available to upgrade your decks that begin to present themselves as either, or hopefully both, very fun and very well-performing decks. That way, your best and most fun decks will continue to get even better over time without pushing undue strain on your wildcard resources. That, of course, leaves our lower rarity wildcards, specifically the commons and uncommons. And when it comes to the commons, well, the name is a little misgiving. This is actually one of the more difficult wildcards to end up with, because you don't have those payback loops when you open packs and things like that. So they actually end up being a little more scarce than common. And for that reason, I would recommend using these to fill in specific holes in your collection that following the plan just haven't really filled out for you. That 3 of common that works very well in a specific deck, and you know a 4th copy will do a lot of work for you. Beyond that, your common wildcards are most valuable for when the Midweek Magic historic Pauper event comes up. Now, granted, once you've invested in a Pauper deck, you can basically play it for the rest of your life with little to no upgrades, just occasionally checking on it and maybe making the occasional upgrade or card switch out or things like that. But the initial investment can be surprisingly taxing on your wild cards, because for the most part, you don't build with just commons. No one does. But this particular format, of course, demands it. So you might need 20 or 30 common wild cards to put together that first deck. And of course, once that event comes around, you've got to be able to act on it. It's a short-term event. It's not like you have weeks to rethink your strategy in order to get your wild cards. You've pretty much got to be ready for it when it happens to come around. Uncommon wildcards, on the other hand, are much easier to come by thanks to opening packs, ICR distributions at uncommon for all sorts of things, including like daily wins and weekly wins and all sorts of mastery pass things. You usually end up with uncommon cards coming out your ears and wild cards to boot. So this is an easy place to start adding some power and definition to your collection particularly early on, without really taxing your wildcards, particularly your higher rarity wildcards, in order to do so. And this strategy is what we are going to focus on for the remainder of this video. When I first started to theorize and plan this particular video, it was my intention to present one uncommon from each color that would make any deck of that color better, i.e. like the short list of the very best uncommons that you could be adding to your collection and have real positive impact on your decks. But I pretty quickly ran into a snag. You see, the red and black colors in particular, at lower rarity, their very best cards tend to be removal pieces. And the fact is, if you spend a lot of time testing individual cards and looking at individual card data and things like that, moving from a piece of removal to the very best piece of removal that a color has to offer really only gives you less than a point on average towards your win rate. And of course, the fourth copy has significantly less impact than the first copy. So even if you upgrade all, say, 6 pieces of removal in your deck to the very, very best, it might only have like a 1.5 total impact on the win rate of your deck. And that's just not a lot of punch, particularly early on when you're trying to get everything you possibly can out of not just your collection and your decks, but specifically your wild cards. So my suggestion, particularly for red and black, is to be patient with the removal that you already have in your collection and don't rush to craft this month's darling that might not be the best piece of removal as early as next month. You just never know. Instead, look for those outstanding uncommons that fit well for your particular deck. For instance, if you have built the black-white bats deck, Deep Cavern Bat in that case is a great thing to consider crafting. And of course, other examples exist in both black and red, and I won't linger over every single one. Instead, let's talk about Blue's Stock Up, a 3-mana sorcery that is seeing play not just in Standard, but across multiple formats, including those really powerful older formats. Mainly because it does what blue does better than any other color pretty exceptionally well, allowing you to look at the top 5 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. In other words, card selection and essentially card draw, although you're not drawing them, you're putting in your hand for a small technical difference, but still an excellent card. 4 copies of this, or at least 3, depending upon the deck, going into any blue deck you're currently enjoying and having some success with is likely to be improved. Alright, so now we need to talk about what I think may be the most powerful uncommon currently in Standard, and that is the white 2-mana Sheltered by Ghost enchantment. Of course, because it is an aura, it does require that you play a reasonable number of creatures in the deck in question before adding this. But let's be honest, that's not really that big of an ask for a typical Magic the Gathering deck. This provides not only a boost to your creature in the form of a +1/+0, but also gives it lifelink and ward 2. And not only does it go in pretty much any white deck with creatures, if that deck also happens to care about enchantments and or life gain, this is a true powerhouse. Really, I think the question to be asking here is not what white decks you should be playing this in, but is an existing deck of yours worth splashing white simply to add this card? And the answer is a pretty solid maybe. And last but certainly not least, I give you Saz's Chocobo. But let's be honest, if you have been on Arena playing a budget deck in the play queues for, I don't know, the last 2 or 3 months, this card really requires no introduction because it might be the best 1-drop in Standard right now, at least at the uncommon level. Certainly seeing a lot of play in mono green landfall, and if you haven't built that deck yet, you really should. Not only does this start off as an unimpressive 0-1, but it will run away with +1/+1 counters almost right away. If you can turn 1 Chocobo and turn 2 Chocobo and then drop a land, you are off to the races, and you're probably going to win that game almost no matter what else happens. You know, that's just how it is right now. The best part about this is you don't even need to go craft this card. Instead, I want you to go play the Final Fantasy Jump In event and grab the mono green pack out of this. Not only will you pick up your Chocobos that way, but you'll pick up the other cards that you really want and need to build a nice budget mono green landfall, and it is absolutely tremendous value. Run, don't walk, go get it right now. So guys, those are my thoughts on the uncommonly good uncommons available in Standard right now, ones that are well worth your wildcards and considerations here. But let me know what you think. Get down in the comments. How are these cards working for you? Which ones are you finding work in what decks? We all learn from each other, so please don't hesitate to share your thoughts. And before we go, I really want to take a moment to thank my patrons for their months of continuous and reliable support here at the Stronghold. It's this kind of support that really gives me the confidence to make investments in the Stronghold, despite the fact that I'm investing money out of pocket month after month. But thank you guys. This means so much and allows me to do so much for the community. And of course, I have some suggestions for some additional content right here on the Stronghold.